Hello everyone, welcome back to an episode of Model Train Technology. Today we're going to install an HO scale light board. This is 264 millimeters long, it's about 10.5 inches, into this Riverossi passenger car that our customer sent us. Now I've already disassembled it somewhat, so this will just come right off, and we'll put that aside. And there were some brass pieces in one end of this car for the pickup, and what we're going to do is we're going to show you how we install our brass strips, which we make. This is called the floating brass pickup for the wheels, and we have these specially etched so that we get the proper thickness out of the right kind of brass. It's the right kind of flexibility, and I've already cut one of those pieces off from the tree, and I'll show you how that goes in a minute. Now, before we do that, what we do is we just take the car and place it upside down. And in this case, in one end, there was already a set of holes. So we're all set to put the wire through on that side. On this side, there was not. Now, there's a couple of interesting thoughts to consider. This particular truck is offset center. So you can see that instead of the pinion being right in the center between the two wheels, this is off a little bit. What that means is it has a good turning radius, which is great. However, typically we put the wire through the car on this end of the truck, and just to kind of keep the wires out of the way, nothing more than that. But since there's such a wide play on this side, we're going to put the wire through this side. So what we've done is we've identified a spot in the truck right there, and we just simply drilled the hole through that. So, and in this case, there's no metal track, so that's the hole that we're going to use. On the other end, the wire will come up under the seats, and we'll connect that up in a second. All right, so there we go. So the first thing that we have to do with the brass strips is to attach. We have some decoder wire. This is very flexible. It's the thinnest that we feel comfortable with, and I've already tinned the end here. And so what I'm going to do is, in the middle of this brass strip, solder this wire on here, just like that, and I'll do it for both ends, and then we'll feed this through the truck. Okay, so I've soldered the wires onto the brass strips, and if you can see that, is the smallest amount of solder that we could use, the wire going at one end. You could do it perpendicular, but we tend to like it this way. What will happen is it'll go into the truck and into the car body just like that. So let's try this. It's a little tricky because I'm doing this at a distance. Okay, so now what we'll do is we'll put the wire through the hole in the truck, and there we go. And we'll just, and through the car body, and we'll just pull it through. All right. So now notice that the solder is going to be on the what will be the upper side, but upside down here. All right. So now what we do, this is really simple. You slide this underneath the axle and push it past the other side of the axle. I'm going to put this down now. Okay. And we're going to get it up over that piece of plastic. There we go. Now pull it through this way, and it'll easily slide. All right, so a little bit of wrestling with it. So now you see, and I'll pull the wire through just to tighten it up a little bit. You'll see that the brass is underneath both of the trucks. And the very simplest next thing is just to take these two tabs and bend them around the axle. And you'll feel a little pressure. You'll be pulling the axle towards each other a little bit, and that's fine because we can reduce the pressure on the axle later on. And so we just pull these over and wrap them around. Now, what I want to do is mention a couple of things on this. First of all, we're getting a lot more surface tension around the axle. So if you think about that round axle, instead of in the old days just a tab touching it where there was just a small section here, we're wrapping a lot more around the axle, so more surface area to connect the brass with the axle. The second thing is we're not attaching this to anything, so it's free to move, which will avoid pinching the wheels. Those two things together cause this heavy friction on the wheels and makes the truck really heavy in terms of pulling motion. This works really well, and when you flip it over, it's floating and there's weight holding the brass down on the axle. So it's a really good system. It's super simple, and we'll do that. We'll just set it up and do that for the other side. And the next thing we'll do is just connect these to the decoder board. This is the old light board that was in there. It's got a bridge rectifier, looks like a regulator to reduce the voltage, and it's got some LEDs in it, but this whole plastic contraption just isn't great. And this is always on, so we put the train on the track, turn the power on, this is going to light the car, and there's no way to control it. Our light board has a DCC decoder in it, so not only can you turn the lights on and off, but there are several other functions. There's some special flex like flicker mode. You can have the lights fade up and fade down. All cars come with an extra auxiliary pad, so for the last car in your train, if you want to have blinking end of car lights, so let's say red blinking lights, you can do that, and you can control those separately from the main LEDs. And in some cases, for dome cars, observation cars, and so forth, we have boards with extra pads so you can light other areas, maybe a hallway. And last point I'll make on that is that this is a single row down the center for our passenger car, which is appropriate. In some cases, for example, a sleeper car, there's a hallway and the lights are on a different side. So we have a dual row LED light board that fits that circumstance. And we have these, of course, this is the HO size. We have a shorter version, which is for baggage cars and other, say, European cars. And then we have all of these in N scale as well. Okay, we've installed the brass strip in the other truck. I just wanted to give you another shot of that. So here is the brass strip wrapped around the axle, single wire going through. I should mention, I didn't before, that these are insulated wheels, which means that one side is insulated from the wheel, and then the axle and this wheel are connected. So you need to make sure that the insulated side are on the same side. And so this is on the upper truck, let's call it, and then the wheels, those insulated wheels, are reversed on the other side. So you get this side picking up one rail and this side picking up the other rail, and you can see what we did again running it through and here. Now we decided for the same reason before, even though there were some holes up front to run the wire through, we didn't like how much play there was in the wire, so we made a small little hole here, and we took the seats out, and the seats will just fit right on top there, so you'll never see it. And so our next task is to connect up the light board, and in this case, typically a lot of the cars have the wires coming up from one side. They're pre-connected. What we did when we made the board is we gave you an option. There is an option. There are two solder pads here for each of the DCC connections. So we've got two, that would be two, but I don't want to run a wire all the way through. So one of the DCC connections is duplicated at the other end. So we've got a short distance here for the wire and a short distance here for the wire. And so I'm going to take this back to the lab bench and solder this wire up here. I'm not going to do it in front of the camera because I've got to get a little closer to see that, but you'll see the result in just a second. Okay, we finished connecting the two wires from the trucks to the light board, DCC1, DCC2, and we're just going to sit it on top here. We'll put the seats back in a minute and we'll lay that on the track. I like HO from time to time. I'm an N scaler, but HO is great because easy to put on the track. So there's a little blue light here that tells you that there's power to the board. I've painted over one layer of flat black paint, just put a little dot on that to reduce it so it's not visible from inside the car. I have an NCE system hooked up here, and I'm just going to hit the headlight button, and there we go. So that's the light board. Now, I'm going to put it on fade mode, which is F5, and hit the headlights, and you can see there's a nice slow fade off and back on. So that's pretty cool. Now, all of our boards come with auxiliary pads, as I mentioned, and that's at this end. And we have a red LED connected there. In this circumstance, we wouldn't be using that, but just to show you how that works, let me turn the headlights off. And there's the red light LED. Now, we would paint over that or disconnect it and connect two red lights to the rear. There's a couple of behaviors. There's a blinking mode. So if you want to turn that on and off remotely, you can. There's a flicker mode, so in the case where you're putting this in a caboose and you want to hook up some warm whites or some yellow lights, like a kerosene lamp, and make it flicker. The main lights also have that functionality, and we'll turn it on, and you can make the mains flicker as you see there. So again, that could be in our, just to give you an idea, in our smaller cars, we might do that. So we'll turn that off. And also, the light is adjustable. So we'll put it into the mode where you can adjust the brightness. Now it's not fading right now. It's just going, adjusting with the speed dial. So that's the way that works. I'll put it back into regular mode. So you've got a lot of options with the board. And as you can see, it's working great. If you rock it, it'll come off, and then it'll come back on when you hit the track. Nothing is 100%, but we have flicker control and capacitors on the board to minimize the any kind of flicker or lighting, the light turning on and off. So there we go, pretty simple. The next step is just to put the carcass back on. We'll clean up a little bit. We're going to reattach the outside bezel. That was coming loose and wasn't inserted properly in this particular car. We'll put the seats back on, and we'll show you that completed car in just a second. Here's the completed car. We've put all of the parts back together. We're going to just put it on the track here. There we go. And we're going to turn the lights out, turn them down anyway, and hit the headlight. And there you go. It's in the fade mode as I described earlier. We'll turn the headlight off, so the light's off and fade. And isn't that pretty cool? So thanks for watching, and you can reach us at modeltrainman.com or modeltraintechnology.com. Both will work. Model Train Man's easier to type. Look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks.